when I was 19 or 20 years old, I actually lost about $70,000.
How did that happen?
Can just suddenly launch a missile somewhere, and then you can just tank your assets and tank your stocks that you're investing in. But then I realized to hit these financial goals by a certain age, it was practically impossible. Everything is considered risky if you're a coward. So maybe have a Gulf Stream by the time I reach 30, and probably be on a yacht with my boys, eating steak and sipping wine.
We have with us today a very special guest who, as a teenager, lost tens of thousands of dollars in the stock market, but through prudent risk management and active trading, actually successfully recovered the sum. So, Solskjaer, please tell me more about yourself.
Hi, my name is Solskjaer. I'm a full-time student studying finance and economics. Like he said, when I was 19 or 20 years old, I actually lost about $70,000. That's a very huge sum. And after being burned, after being disciplined and learning actually what goes on in the financial markets, through proper risk management, I am now a profitable trader.
So let's start at the beginning. You mentioned that you're a finance student, but you're also actively trading. In order to recover that sum, you've probably made tens of thousands of dollars per trade. So why are you starting? That's the big question, right? If you're so good at trading, why not trade full time?
I think it's just that piece of paper, the certificate of you taking a degree. Because if you want to join the banking industry, especially like the high finance, you need a degree, you need a cert to show that you have studied at the prestigious school.
But it's the same question, right? If you're so good at trading, then why even go to a bank job? Why not just trade by yourself?
Full-time trading is quite stressful. And in terms of diversifying my risk, I don't want to just solely rely on full-time trading for an income.
So actually, what sparked this interest in trading?
Yeah, so long story short, it was during army when we first started BMT. So everybody was in their bunks and they don't know what to do. And then somebody was delving in the stock market, and then everybody got hooked into the stock market. So that was the point of time in 2021 where there was a China bull run. Everything was rallying. There was the meme stock rally for GameStop, AMD, Blueberry, and many other stocks. And that's how we got hooked into the stock market.
Do you think it's a good or bad thing that you actually entered the market when it was at all-time highs, when there was this whole craze going on?
I think it was a very bad timing for us because everything rallied. So whatever that you bought, be it China stocks, US stocks, you will have profited. You will have profited. And essentially it made you have this false idea that trading is profitable, it's very easy. And then when the bear market comes, when everything starts crashing, for example, China had a crash of around 75%. So if you're actually holding all these stocks, you have been burned very badly.
Yeah, I think you're still burnt to this day. But I mean, that's kind of like the tuition fee you pay to the stock market in a sense, right? So speaking of this tuition fee, isn't it the same kind of logic when you say you're paying a tuition fee towards schooling? So that boils down to the question, is a finance degree even worth it? Because either way, you're going to pay some form of fee to the market.
I think it's a very good way to have a structured form of learning in finance because finance is very, very broad. You have so many different divisions from high finance all the way until low finance. And essentially, it teaches you in a structured manner on how to do valuation, how to analyze the stock market, but it's all in theory.
Do you think this kind of formal education gives you any sort of edge in the market, actually?
Everything that they teach is in theory. So when it comes to valuation, time value of money, all this Excel is really just tweaking numbers and helping you with identifying what is the correct ratio for a company, whether should you buy or should you sell or should you hold. When it comes to the actual stock market, it could be slightly different because the stock market is always irrational. It's not just based on numbers and whether is it based on theoretical accuracy. So I believe you still need to have some form of experience in the financial markets outside of the finance degree to gain an edge.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that schools don't teach you. And I think we have kind of depacked from what fundamental analysis really is. Right? The market is not really rational and behaving according to fundamentals for a long, long time. So if that's the case, then can most of it actually be self-learned?
I believe so. Yes, you need a very structured form of learning outside of the finance degree. I would say a lot of financial gurus out there may over-promote how easy it is to be profitable. I would say you need a lot of knowledge and a very nuanced understanding of what the financial markets is all about. How are different assets tied together? What are the macro, micro plays in each country and the stock market that you're dealing with? Even geopolitical events could affect the financial markets. So you need to really read up on everything. And I would say financial news sources like Bloomberg and all these investing.com. All these, they provide good sources to read up on.
So you mentioned earlier you lost $70,000, was it, in the stock market at 19 years old? How did that happen?
Just to give you a bit of context, so during the bull market run in 2021, where everything was rallying, I put my whole lot into Upstart. So that was an earnings play, which was quite degenerate, and it doubled in the stock price. So my net worth actually doubled, and I thought that being profitable was it's very easy. But that was during the bull market where everything you bought actually rallied, regardless of earnings miss, whether is it good earnings. And then I threw everything into SoFi, which was at the high of the bull market, and I lost about 50%. So that was the first big hit that I had. Then afterwards, I went into Forex. So 2022 was a period where there were a lot of Forex gurus, a lot of Telegram channels coming up, sharing their profits and losses, but they can just manipulate the trades. And there was a lot of copy trading as well. So like I will copy trade with high leverage, and I would copy these Telegram channels. So essentially I lost another 30 to 40% of my remaining capital over there. And then that was when I decided I should take a break from all of this, because I actually lost a lot from that period of time. And in hindsight, I should have been more prudent.
How did it affect you mentally?
Cannot sleep. Cannot sleep.
Yeah.
Because, for example, if you buy a stock and you lose everything, essentially in the long run, the stock market still can recover. But when you look at Forex, once it's lost. And usually you get margin called, you cannot get back any of your capital already. So, and it was a very high leverage play.
You mentioned you took a break, right? So what are any lessons learned during this break?
I think one very big lesson that I learned is to be very, very careful in the markets, because anything can happen. Trump can just suddenly launch a missile somewhere, and then you can just tank your assets and tank your stocks that you're investing in. I realized that you need to reflect. You need to know where you went wrong. And in terms of trading, honestly, it's a learning journey. You need to constantly look back at your trades, regardless if it's profitable, regardless if it's a bad loss, regardless if you didn't do enough research. You need to constantly reflect. And in terms of the emotions wise, I had to completely not look at the financial markets, because it was a lot of distraction. It was very tempting to get back into the stock market when you see other people being profitable regardless of a bull or bear market. And then for me, I just chose not to look at it at all. So in terms of whatever is happening in the economy, whatever that's happening in like other stock markets, I just chose not to touch it at all.
So what made you come back into trading? I'm sure a lot of people have been discouraged having lost such a huge sum of money at such a young age.
So I started looking at the financial markets again when I ORD'd. So that was about January 2023. And I had some of these like life goals, like, I need to hit a certain net worth by a certain time. And then I realized that I did hustle. I did try to do part-time and earn some money. But then I realized like to hit this life goal, to hit these financial goals by a certain age, it was practically impossible in terms of just like a normal job. So I realized that when you actually look at trading and you just count in terms of percentage returns, like for example, 1% a day, or let's say 30% in a month. I know it sounds crazy, but with big plays, you can actually. Then I realized that actually trading is possible. Trading is possible with that. You can reach that goal with trading. So I started learning again. I started reading properly, but I didn't touch the financial markets yet. I just started educating myself again, allowing myself to know what's going on currently during 2023 and 2024. So afterwards, when I got comfortable, then I started with a small sum again. So about mid 4 figures. And when I became more confident, I actually like threw in more, as using my savings as well as my hard-earned money. And afterwards, I managed to scale up to getting 10K per trade. And instead of being more degenerate like what I did in the past, now I'm more knowledgeable. And I'm thankful that actually everything happened for a reason. I was thankful that I lost this amount of money last time, so that I won't repeat the same mistake again.
So you mentioned a lot about these arbitrary goals. Why do you set them? Are these some sort of societal standards, or are you putting this pressure on yourself?
I I would say half half. So half on societal standards. Or you need to have a certain amount by 25, by 30, because you need to have a safety net. And then for my side, I want to be very ambitious, and I want to have certain financial milestones hit by a certain age as well. If not, I wouldn't be financially free.
So you mentioned that you're very passionate about finance. Finance has so many different paths. We have banking, investment banking, private banking, corporate banking. Having guidance also can help you make a big difference in what kind of route you choose. I'm curious, have you found yours?
I'm still figuring things out because I realized that, when you look at charts and all, it's not what you do in the banking side, unless you're at a quant side. And a lot of it is like sales and trading, investment banking at the high finance side. So I'm still figuring things out. I have not reached that level yet, but I would love to learn more actually.
How do you actually find an edge? Because with AI nowadays, you're actually trading against robots. So where's your edge?
I think in terms of algo trading, it's not just a full-time like algo bot that's trading, but more of providing you with the alerts, and then you use your discretion to see whether you want to enter the market, whether you want to buy or sell or take a shot.
So there's still a lot of discretion in your own judicious judgment when it comes to making these trades. It's not all automatic. So what you're saying?
Yeah, it's just that you don't have to constantly look at the markets, at the charts to wait for the specific alert to play out.
So does this actually help your emotions? Because by making it a bit more automated, you're actually removing this kind of emotional aspect from it. Do you think it's good for you?
I think first off, it removes the bias, because once you set these rules into play, then you are sticking strictly to the alerts, which is the rules that you have played. Second is that it frees up a lot of time, a lot of emotional capacity when it comes to looking at the charts, because it can become very mentally draining to just keep staring at the charts, looking at price action. So I would say trying to change it into code would be beneficial if you were to do intraday trading.
So there's also this common belief that you need tens of thousands of dollars to start trading. But as you know, students actually don't have that much capital. We are also limited by that. And they might only start with a few $100s. Do you think that's enough to actually start trading?
I believe any amount is possible to start trading. And actually, if you're not confident, if you're not knowledgeable enough and you just want to test the markets, you can start off with even $20, because you can buy fractional shares nowadays. And $500 is definitely more than enough. I mean, if you want, you can even start off with $10,000 also.
So now with markets so volatile right now in 2025, we have Trump coming out with new news every day. How often are you actually making moves or taking trades?
I would say taking a longer term play right now is better, because in the short run, you don't know what he's going to do. Like, it's so hard to predict. Like, for example, recently he announced the visa fee. So how are you going to predict that? Or if you look at, let's say, copper in July, when he announced the tariffs on copper, in May, he announced the tariffs on copper, and then it spiked up 10 to 20%. And then he said, we won't have any tariff anymore. And then it dropped 7%, 8% in 2 consecutive days. How are you going to predict that? It's very, very tough. So look at the macro plays, look at your macro theses, stay in the markets for a longer period of time.
It's like the common saying, right? Time in the market beats timing the market. And I think over time, people are getting more tolerant to Trump. They're less sensitive to it. They're a bit more desensitized, because even though he's making news every day, the market's actually moving less. We're still slowly trucking upwards, at least for equities. So who have been key influencers in your journey so far? Is there any financial role model? Are there traders you look up to?
For me, I watch Meet Kevin a lot, actually. He shares news with a very unbiased way. He shares both the bull and bear side, and he also shares it very, very quickly. So like when something happens, he shares it almost immediately, and he does a YouTube live or YouTube video immediately after. I also look at Twitter or X, where there are a lot of economists, lots of full-time traders where they trade themselves, macroeconomists. I also follow Ray Dalio. Yeah, I'm not sure if you know him, but basically they share a lot of insights on X, and it's very good to be knowledgeable also.
So you've mentioned so many different people. Can you share one piece of advice that has really stuck with you, or maybe a quote from any of these your favorite traders or investors?
I think one quote that stuck with me was, everything is considered risky if you are a coward. So it's not just in finance, in trading or investing, but in life in general. Like if you don't want to take risk and you see everything as risky, then you're always going to be in the same spot, in your same comfort zone.
Yeah, so one of my favorite quotes as well, like not taking a risk is a risk in itself, And how do you balance trading and studying at the same time?
So I usually look at the US stock market. So it opens around 8 p.m. That's for the open market. So for me, it doesn't really clash with my lessons, which is in a day. And when you read up, you can read up anytime. So in terms of the amount of capital I put in, I know that it's a calculated risk. I'm risking slightly more, but I believe that at such a young age, I should risk more. So I should be able to sleep okay at night.
Are there any trade-off or sacrifices you had to do to balance studying and trading?
I wouldn't say trade-offs, but more of discipline. So like it can get very addictive to keep on looking at the stock market, look at your account balance because you're invested in something, right? And I would say you need to have the discipline to take it off your mind. So for example, if you have exams coming up, then you should focus on your exams and not just keep looking at the stock market.
So most people your age are enjoying life. While they're studying in school, they're also partying. Do you feel like you're missing out?
I would say yes, but I don't think it affects my main goal. So I'm taking baby steps to where I want to be next time, to maybe have a Gulf Stream by the time I reach 30, and probably be on a yacht with my boys, eating steak and sipping wine.
Stick.
But anyways, yeah, I believe in delayed gratification. So I don't really want to dive into all this partying. And I mean, if you're rich next time, you can possibly do the same thing when you're slightly older. I don't think you're missing out on a lot of things. And I have to look at the point of view of compounding. So like if you start now and you start compounding in terms of your life goals, improving yourself every day, fitness, finance, your own capital, over time it will add up. So while now the compounding effects may not be visible, but over time, this amount of time that you sacrifice, not partying at all, it will add up. And I believe that's where the compounding effect will become more significant in the future.
Any tips for students nervous about reaching out or starting to trade?
I would say be very careful because you never know which financial guru is just out there to sell you a course. And I would say stay away from copy trading because I've been there, done that. I know how it felt, the amount of losses that piled up based on copy trading. So I would say don't copy trade just because you're not confident in the markets. Maybe you can start off with a demo account for yourself or a small amount of capital that you can control.
All right, you actually shared a lot today, really personal stuff about trading, how much you've lost, your mindset towards that, and also taking a break. Those were very insightful, and I'm sure our listeners and our guests will actually love to hear from all of these gems that you've been giving.
Thank you for having me here. It was a pleasure. It's a very nice conversation, actually.
As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below when you think someone should actually start trading. And if you're trying to start investing or trading, you can go to www.ig.com/SG.